Only 7 people on that film set knew who Bruce Lee really was. The 290-pound professional wrestler pinning him against the wall didn't. The director watching from behind the camera didn't. The 40 crew members standing around the soundstage didn't. The stunt coordinator who hired the wrestler didn't recognize the small Chinese actor as anything more than a television sidekick with decent reflexes. That was about to change. In the next 3 seconds, the biggest man on that set would be lying flat on his back on a concrete floor, staring at the ceiling lights, trying to understand what just happened to him. And every single person in that room would carry this story with them for the rest of their lives. This is what really happened on October 14, 1967. This is the story Hollywood tried to forget. Burbank, California. Warner Brothers Studio, Stage 12. October 14, 1967. Saturday morning, 9:15 a.m. The Green Hornet is in its first and only season. The show films on a tight schedule. 6-day weeks, long hours, grueling pace. The cast and crew are running behind on production. 3 episodes need to be completed before the end of the month, and today they are shooting the fight choreography for episode 19, a warehouse infiltration sequence. Stage 12 is one of the older sound stages on the Warner Brothers lot. High ceilings, 40 feet up, draped with electrical cables and lighting rigs. Concrete floor covered with rubber mats for the action sequences. The space is enormous, 15,000 square feet, but today it feels cramped. Props from 3 different episodes are stacked along the walls. Fake alleyway flats, a dockside warehouse set built from plywood and paint, wooden crates stamped with Chinese characters, steel drums filled with sand for ballast. The smell of sawdust and fresh paint hangs in the air, mixed with the burnt metal scent from the overhead Klieg lights. 47 people are on set this morning. Camera operators, lighting technicians, sound engineers, makeup artists, prop handlers, grips, the director, the assistant director, and 2 producers. This is a working day. Nobody is expecting what is about to happen. The atmosphere is professional but tense. The show's ratings have been slipping for 6 consecutive weeks. ABC executives have been making calls, threatening calls. The Green Hornet needs better action sequences, more excitement, something visceral, something physical, something to separate it from every other crime drama on television. That is why the producers made a decision that would change the course of this particular Saturday morning in ways nobody on that soundstage could possibly predict. The producers hired outside talent for the fight scenes. Not actors, not regular stunt performers, real fighters. Men with legitimate combat credentials who could make the action look authentic on camera. The idea was simple. Bring in big, physically intimidating opponents for Kato, the masked sidekick played by Bruce Lee. Film realistic-looking fights. Give the audience something they had never seen on American television before. The first man they hired was Victor the Viking Johansson, not his real name. He was born Victor Johansson in Malmö, Sweden, in 1935. Changed his first name when he entered American professional wrestling in 1958. Added the Viking because his promoter told him Americans loved Norse mythology. Victor was 32 years old in 1967. He stood 6 feet 4 inches tall. He weighed 290 pounds. Not fat, not bloated, not soft. 290 pounds of functional, dense, trained muscle built over 14 years of professional wrestling and 6 years of competitive Greco-Roman wrestling before that. Victor had competed in the 1956 Melbourne Olympics for Sweden in the Greco-Roman heavyweight division. He didn't medal, finished 7th. But 7th in the world is still 7th in the world. 7th out of every heavyweight Greco-Roman wrestler on the planet. He lost in the quarterfinals to the Soviet competitor Boris Kulakov, who went on to win bronze. Victor was 21 years old at those Olympics, young, raw, full of potential. His coaches told him to wait for Rome in 1960, train harder, come back stronger. Victor had other plans. After Melbourne, he moved to America, settled in Los Angeles, transitioned from amateur Greco-Roman wrestling to professional wrestling. The money was better. The lifestyle suited him. He was big, blonde, handsome, and Swedish. Perfect heel material, perfect villain. The American wrestling audiences loved to hate him. He played the role well. The arrogant European strongman, the man who looked down on American wrestlers. The man who cheated when the referee wasn't looking. It was an act. But the line between the act and the man was thin. Thinner than Victor realized. By October of 1967, Victor had been wrestling professionally for nearly a decade. His win-loss record was manufactured, like all professional wrestling records of that era. But his skills were real. Genuinely, dangerously real. He could legitimately grapple at an elite level. He understood leverage, body mechanics, joint manipulation, weight distribution, balance disruption. He had hands like dinner plates, thick fingers, dense knuckles. His grip strength was measured at 180 pounds per square inch, nearly double the average man. When Victor grabbed you, you stayed grabbed. His neck measured 21 inches around, his chest was 54 inches, his forearms were 16 inches, bigger than most men's biceps. His thighs measured 29 inches each, thicker than many men's waists. He was, by any physical measurement available, an enormous and powerful human being. But Victor's real credential was not his size, it was his training background. Before professional wrestling became his career, before the costumes and the scripts and the theatrical falls, Victor had trained in legitimate catch wrestling, the real combat grappling art that professional wrestling originally descended from. Hooks, cranks, submissions, chokes, takedowns, pins, joint locks designed not for show but for breaking. Victor knew them all. He had spent 3 years training under Carl Gotch in Wigan, England, learning the Lancashire catch-as-catch-can style that produced some of the most dangerous grapplers in combat sports history. Billy Robinson, Billy Joyce, Bert Asarati, Carl Gotch himself. These were not entertainers. These were men who could genuinely hurt you, who could fold your body in ways it was not designed to fold. Victor learned from the best of them. He was not just big, he was not just strong. Victor was skilled. Victor was technically proficient. Victor was legitimately dangerous, and Victor had a problem that his size and his skill could not fix. He did not respect actors. To Victor, Hollywood was fake, every bit of it. The fights were fake, the tough guys were fake, the heroes were fake. Everything was choreographed, rehearsed, performed for cameras. It offended him on a fundamental level. He was a real fighter, a real athlete. An Olympic-level competitor who had tested himself against the best grapplers in the world. Being hired to pretend to lose to a 135-pound Chinese actor wearing a mask was, in his mind, an insult to everything he had achieved. He took the job because the money was good. $500 for a single day's work in 1967 was excellent pay, more than he made in a week of wrestling shows. But he made no effort to hide his contempt from the moment he arrived. He was dismissive of the crew, short with the makeup artist who tried to apply foundation for the camera, cold to the other performers and stunt workers. And when he saw Bruce Lee for the first time warming up in the corner of stage 12, his contempt crystallized into something much worse. It became targeted disrespect. Bruce Lee was in the far corner of the soundstage, shadowboxing, practicing kicks, moving through Wing Chun Chi Sao patterns, sticking hands drills, his arms weaving in small circles. He was wearing the Kato costume minus the mask. Black suit, black shirt, black tie. He looked like a well-dressed office worker warming up for a jog. He was 5 feet 7 inches tall, 135 pounds. His arms were lean, striated, defined with visible muscle fibers, but thin compared to Victor's massive limbs. Bruce's entire bicep was smaller than Victor's forearm. His waist was narrower than one of Victor's thighs. The size difference was not subtle. It was extreme. Victor watched him from across the soundstage, watched this small man throwing punches at the air with blinding speed, watched him practicing kicks that snapped like whips, watched him move through what Victor considered to be dance moves, not fighting techniques. Victor turned to the stunt coordinator, a man named Jeff Cooper. That's the guy I'm supposed to fight? He's tiny. Jeff nodded. That's Bruce Lee. He plays Kato. Victor snorted. I've wrestled middleweights bigger than him. What's his thing, some kind of kung fu? He does several kinds of martial arts, Jeff said carefully, choosing his words. He's very fast. Extremely fast. Victor laughed. Fast doesn't matter when you're on the ground. And everyone ends up on the ground eventually. That's the first rule of real fighting. Jeff Cooper tried to explain. He told Victor that Bruce was different from anyone he had ever worked with, that the choreography needed to be followed exactly as rehearsed, that Bruce's techniques were real martial arts, not stage fighting, and that his speed and precision required careful coordination. Victor waved him off like a man swatting a fly. I know how to work a fight. I've been doing this for 10 years. Just tell me where to stand and when to go down. Then Victor made his mistake. His enormous, career-defining mistake. He walked over to where the crew was setting up cameras near the warehouse set. He spoke loudly enough for everyone within 50 feet to hear, loudly enough for Bruce Lee, who was 30 feet away with his back turned, to hear every word. I don't understand why they need a kung fu guy for this show. Wrestling is real fighting. Kung fu is just acrobatics for little guys who can't handle real combat. Put that little man in a real fight against a real fighter, and he'd last about 5 seconds, maybe 3. The soundstage went quiet. Not silent, the equipment hummed, the lights buzzed, but the human noise stopped. Several crew members who had worked with Bruce for months on the show exchanged nervous glances. They knew something Victor didn't. They had seen Bruce move when the cameras weren't rolling. They had watched him shatter boards with side kicks. They had seen his 1-inch punch send a 200-pound grip stumbling backwards 6 feet. They knew what the small man in the corner was capable of. Bruce continued his warm-up. Didn't turn around. Didn't react visibly. But Dan Inosanto, Bruce's closest student and friend, who was on set that day as a supporting stunt performer in a later scene, noticed something. Bruce's movements changed. The casual warm-up became sharper. The kicks snapped harder. The hand techniques became crisper, more precise, more focused. The relaxed fluidity was replaced by something Dan had seen before, something that preceded violence. Dan walked over to Bruce, spoke quietly. You don't have to prove anything to that guy. Bruce didn't look at him. His eyes were forward. His hands kept moving. I won't have to, Bruce said quietly. He'll prove it to himself. The director, Norman Foster, called everyone together for the fight rehearsal. The scene was straightforward television action. Kato enters a warehouse. A large thug, played by Victor, attacks him from behind. Kato defends himself, counters, and defeats the thug in a series of quick strikes and techniques. Standard television fight choreography. 45 seconds of screen time. The stunt coordinator walked them through the sequence step by step. Victor would grab Bruce from behind in a bear hug. Bruce would break free with an elbow strike, pulled and controlled, of course, then throw a series of hand techniques and a spinning back kick. Victor would react, stagger, sell the impact, and go down. Simple, rehearsed, professional, safe. Victor listened to the instructions, nodded, seemed to comply. Then, during the first physical walkthrough, before the cameras were even rolling, he changed the plan entirely. Instead of the choreographed bear hug from behind, Victor grabbed Bruce from the front. Full clinch. Both massive arms wrapped completely around Bruce's torso, pinning Bruce's arms tight against his sides. He drove Bruce backward into the warehouse set wall. Hard. Not television hard, real hard. The plywood flat rattled against its bracing. Sawdust shook loose from the joints. Bruce's back hit the wall with genuine force, 290 pounds of momentum behind it. Victor pressed in, crushing Bruce against the set piece, his arms constricted, his grip tightened. 180 pounds per square inch of grip strength applied directly to Bruce Lee's body. Victor leaned in close. His face was 4 inches from Bruce's face, close enough to smell his breath, close enough to see the pores in his skin. He was grinning, the arrogant European strongman grin, the heel's smile, Show me your kung fu now, little man. Let's see how your acrobatics work when you can't move your arms." The set fell absolutely silent. 47 people watched. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Jeff Cooper, the stunt coordinator, started to step forward. His hand was raised. This was not the choreography. This was not rehearsed. This was a 290-pound professional wrestler applying genuine force to a 135-pound actor. Someone could get seriously hurt. He did not make it 2 steps before the situation resolved itself. What happened next took 3 seconds. 3 seconds that 47 people witnessed. 3 seconds that none of them would ever forget for as long as they lived. Bruce Lee did not panic, did not struggle, did not try to wrestle his way free. His arms were pinned against his sides by Victor's bear hug, 290 pounds of crushing pressure squeezing inward. His back was flat against the plywood wall. He had 0 leverage, 0 space, no room to throw a punch, no room to chamber a kick, no room to move in any conventional sense. By every principle of physics, by every rule of grappling, by every measure of size and strength, Bruce Lee was completely and totally trapped. Victor outweighed him by 155 pounds. Victor's arms were thicker than Bruce's legs. Victor's grip could crack walnuts in his palm. This was supposed to be the moment where the little kung fu actor admitted reality, where dance met wrestling, where fake met real. Second 1. Bruce drops his center of gravity. Not dramatically. 2 inches. A subtle sinking of the hips that creates a tiny gap, barely half an inch, between Victor's forearms and Bruce's lower ribcage. A space that should not matter, a space too small for any normal person to exploit. But Bruce Lee's hands are free below the elbows. His fingers, trained through thousands of hours of Chi Sao sensitivity drills, find Victor's inner forearm, the flexor digitorum profundus, the precise point where the tendons controlling grip connect to the radius bone. Bruce does not push outward against the bear hug. He does not attempt to overpower 290 pounds of muscle with 135 pounds of speed. Instead, his fingertips press inward with precise, targeted force on the pressure point. The nerve fires incorrectly for a fraction of a second, 1/10 of a second, perhaps less. Victor's grip loosens by millimeters. Involuntary, uncontrollable, a reflex response that no amount of strength training can override. Second 2. That fraction of a second is everything. Bruce's right arm snakes free from the momentarily loosened grip. His elbow rises in a tight vertical arc. Buji, thrusting fingers elbow strike, a close-range Wing Chun technique designed specifically for situations where the fighter has been grabbed, trapped, or cornered. The elbow does not aim at Victor's head, does not aim at his jaw or temple. It targets the space between Victor's collarbone and the point of his shoulder, the suprascapular nerve. Bruce's elbow makes contact. Controlled, precise, surgical, not full power. Maybe 40% of what Bruce could generate. But 40% is enough. An electric jolt shoots down Victor's entire right arm from shoulder to fingertips. The arm goes partially numb. Victor's right hand involuntarily releases. His grip breaks on one side. With only his left arm maintaining the bear hug, the leverage equation changes completely. 290 pounds means nothing with one arm. Second 3. Bruce pivots from his hips. His entire body rotates as a single unit, generating force from the ground through his legs through his core. His left hand fires upward. Pak Sao, the slapping deflection, a fundamental Wing Chun technique. It catches Victor's remaining left arm and redirects it away from Bruce's body. Not with strength, with angle, with timing, with the precise application of force at the exact moment the arm is transitioning between contraction and extension. Simultaneously, Bruce's right hand fires forward. Straight blast, 1-inch punch range. The punch that Bruce Lee made famous. His fist accelerates from a dead stop to full extension in less than 6 inches. It stops 2 inches from Victor's throat, 2 inches from his Adam's apple, 2 inches from the trachea, close enough for Victor to feel the displaced air on his skin, close enough to see every knuckle, every tendon in Bruce's fist, close enough to understand with absolute crystal clarity what just happened and what could have happened. Bruce holds the position for a full 3 seconds, his fist motionless in the air, his eyes locked on Victor's eyes. The message requires no translation, no explanation, no words. That fist could have crushed your windpipe. That strike could have ended your career, could have ended your ability to breathe without a machine, and you would not have seen it coming. Victor stumbles backward, not from any physical impact, from the pure shock of comprehension. His right arm is tingling, sensation returning in waves. His left arm hangs awkwardly where the Pak Sao redirected it. He trips over a wooden prop crate behind him and sits down hard on the concrete floor. 290 pounds hitting concrete. The sound echoes through stage 12 like a bass drum. He sits there, staring up at Bruce Lee. Bruce has not moved from the spot where Victor pinned him against the wall 3 seconds earlier. He is standing calmly, feet shoulder-width apart, hands relaxed at his sides, breathing normally, as if nothing remarkable occurred, as if 3 seconds did not just rewrite everything Victor Johansson understood about fighting. The silence on stage 12 is absolute. 47 people saw it happen. 47 people are processing what their eyes just reported to their brains. The largest man on set, a former Olympic wrestler with 20 years of legitimate combat training, is sitting on a cold concrete floor. The smallest man on set is standing above him, untouched, unbothered, completely unmoved. Not a hair out of place, not a breath elevated. Jeff Cooper breaks the silence. He starts clapping. Slowly. One person. Then the grip standing behind camera 2 joins, then 2 lighting technicians, then 10 people, then the entire crew. Not polite Hollywood applause, stunned, involuntary recognition of something extraordinary. They just witnessed something that should not be possible, something that violated every assumption about size, about strength, about what wins in a real physical confrontation. The director, Norman Foster, steps forward from behind the camera. His mouth is slightly open. "Bruce, what the hell was that?" Bruce looks at him with calm, dark eyes. "That was 3 seconds, Mr. Foster. Imagine what I could do with 45. The crew laughs. The tension cracks. But Victor is still on the floor. He is not laughing. He is thinking, processing, recalculating. 20 years of combat experience, Olympic-level Greco-Roman wrestling, professional catch wrestling credentials, hands that could crush bone, and a 135-pound man just escaped his full-strength bear hug, disabled his arm with a pressure strike, and placed a killing technique at his throat before Victor's brain even registered that the bear hug had failed. Victor stands up, slowly. His right arm is working again, the numbness replaced by a dull warmth. He rolls his shoulder, flexes his fingers. He walks over to Bruce Lee. The soundstage goes quiet again. People tense. Is this round 2? Is the wrestler going to try again? Victor stops 3 feet in front of Bruce, towers over him, 9 inches taller, 155 pounds heavier. His shadow engulfs Bruce entirely. Then Victor does something that nobody on that set expects. He extends his right hand. His enormous hand, scarred from years of grappling, swallows Bruce's hand completely. "How did you do that?" Victor asks. His voice has transformed. The swagger is gone. The arrogance has evaporated. What remains is genuine, unguarded curiosity, the voice of a man who just discovered that the world is larger than he thought it was. "Your grip has a weakness," Bruce says simply. "Every grip does, no matter how strong. You rely on muscle. Muscle has limits. Technique finds those limits and exploits them." Victor shakes his head slowly, still processing. "I have been grabbed by men bigger than me, stronger than me. I have never seen anyone escape a full clinch that fast. Nobody escapes like that." Bruce considers his words before responding. In wrestling, you train to resist force with force. Stronger grip beats weaker grip. Bigger body controls smaller body. These are your rules. But what happens when the smaller body does not resist at all? What happens when it flows around the force instead of pushing against it? You cannot grip water, Victor. You cannot pin smoke. But water can wear through stone, and smoke tells you exactly where the fire is. Victor is quiet for a long moment. This is a new concept for an Olympic wrestler. 20 years of training built on a single foundational principle. Overpower your opponent with superior force, superior leverage, superior physicality. And now a man half his size, a man he called a fake, is telling him there is an entirely different way to understand combat. Your wrestling is excellent, Bruce says. Your fundamentals are very strong. Your Greco-Roman base is solid, professional-level control. I could feel the quality of your training in your clinch. Victor looks surprised. You could analyze all that while I had you pinned? Bruce almost smiles. Not quite, but close. I understood your grip in the first half second. The other 2.5 seconds were just my response. Victor stares at him for several seconds. Then he asks the question that will change his understanding of martial arts forever. Can you teach me what you just did? Bruce studies Victor's face carefully, looking for something specific. He finds it. Sincerity. The arrogance that walked onto stage 12 at 9:15 that morning has been completely replaced by the humility that genuine learning demands. We have 45 seconds of fight choreography to film, Bruce says. Let's make it the best 45 seconds of action anyone has ever seen on television. Then we can talk. They film the warehouse fight scene. It takes 4 takes to get it right. Not because of mistakes. Because the director keeps asking for one more. Each take is better than the last. Victor sells Bruce's techniques with genuine respect and authentic reactions. His stumbles are real. His falls are committed. When Bruce's strikes snap past his face, inches from contact, Victor does not have to act surprised. He is surprised. Genuinely. Every single time. After filming wraps for the day, Bruce and Victor sit on wooden prop crates in the corner of stage 12. The crew is packing equipment around them. Dan Inosanto pulls up a folding chair and joins the conversation. For 45 minutes, Bruce explains his philosophy to a man who came to the studio that morning believing Kung Fu was fake. He talks about Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. He explains that true martial arts is not about one style against another. It is about understanding universal principles that govern all combat. Leverage, timing, sensitivity, economy of motion, centerline theory. He demonstrates on Victor's massive arms, showing how dim Mach pressure points work regardless of muscle mass, how joint manipulation follows anatomical law, not strength, how speed multiplied by precision will always beat raw power multiplied by size. Victor listens like a first-day student, not like a 290-pound Olympic athlete, not like a decorated professional wrestler, like a humble student hearing truth for the first time. Before Victor leaves the Warner Brothers lot that afternoon, walking across the parking lot toward his car in the October California sun, he stops and asks Bruce one final question. If you had followed through with that punch, full power, at that range, what would have happened to me? Bruce looks at him with complete honesty. No drama, no ego, just fact. You would have been breathing through a tube, Victor, possibly for the rest of your life. Victor nods slowly. He understands now with perfect clarity. The 2 inches between Bruce Lee's fist and his throat was not a gap in technique, not a miss, not hesitation. It was a gift. The conscious, deliberate mercy of a man who could have ended Victor's career, ended his ability to speak, ended his ability to swallow food, but chose restraint over destruction. That is not Kung Fu, Victor says quietly, almost to himself. That is something else entirely. Bruce nods once. It is not Kung Fu. It is not wrestling. It is not karate, not judo, not boxing. It is not any single style. It is just fighting. Real fighting. Honest fighting. Understanding your own body. Understanding the opponent's body. Understanding the moment where those two things meet. Be like water, Victor. Water does not fight the rock. It does not try to overpower the rock. It flows around it. And given enough time, the water always wears the rock away. Victor the Viking Johansson continued wrestling professionally until 1972. He retired with a manufactured record that did not matter, and a real education that did. He opened a small training facility in San Diego that combined Greco-Roman wrestling fundamentals with principles of Jeet Kune Do that he learned from Bruce Lee and Dan Inosanto over the following years. He never called himself a master. He never called himself an expert. He called himself a student. Always a student. When people asked about his most memorable fight in 20 years of professional combat, he never mentioned the Melbourne Olympics. Never mentioned his professional wrestling career. Never mentioned the hundreds of opponents he had faced. He told them about a Saturday morning in Burbank, about Stage 12 at Warner Brothers, about a 135-pound man in a black suit who escaped the strongest bear hug Victor had ever applied, about 3 seconds that rewrote everything he believed about fighting, about strength, about what it means to be truly dangerous. The 7 people on set that morning who already knew who Bruce Lee really was, they were not surprised by what they witnessed. Dan Inosanto smiled through the entire encounter. He had seen this before. The other 40 people on that soundstage, they told the story for decades afterward. At parties, at barbecues, at family dinners. Some people believed them. Most did not. A 135-pound actor overpowering a 290-pound Olympic wrestler in 3 seconds without throwing a single full punch? Impossible. Except it happened. 47 witnesses. 1 wrestler who learned the most important lesson of his life, and 1 small, quiet man in a black suit who taught the biggest person in the room that muscle is just tissue. Size is just a number. Grip strength is just a measurement. But understanding, true, deep, patient understanding of the human body and the principles that govern its movement, that is something that cannot be measured on a scale, cannot be counted in pounds, and can never, ever be overpowered. October 14th, 1967. Warner Brothers Studio, Stage 12, Burbank, California. The day a 290-pound wrestler discovered that the wall he had spent 20 years building with muscle could be walked through in 3 seconds by a man armed with nothing but wisdom. The day 47 people watched the impossible happen right in front of their eyes. The day Bruce Lee proved, calmly and quietly and without a single wasted movement, that water always finds a way through the rock.